Next day, they set their plan in motion. Paul brings beverages, including a drugged one for Wild Bill, which causes him to fall asleep. They proceed to gag Percy, restrain him in a straitjacket, and confine him to the padded room for a few hours as a form of payback for his actions against Edouard Delacroix. However, the true intention is to ensure Percy doesn't witness their departure. Dean has memorized a cover story in case anyone questions their activities, claiming that John Coffey became violent and had to be placed in the padded room, which would account for any sounds emanating from it, while the rest of the guards attend to matters at the medical facility. Wild Bill, who is not fully unconscious yet, grabs Coffey's arm. John is visibly horrified by what he encounters upon touching Wild Bill, causing him to finally fall asleep. Upon arriving at Hal's home, they are met with his threatening response, mistaking their presence for a prison riot or escape attempt. Paul skillfully diffuses the situation through conversation, while Coffey ascends the stairs to meet Melinda. John approaches Melinda closely, and something emerges from her mouth into his, resulting in an intense luminosity in the room and even a minor earthquake. John breaks the connection, collapsing and coughing. Meanwhile, Melinda sits up, appearing much healthier and with no recollection of what occurred before her X-ray. Overwhelmed with relief, Hal collapses in tears at his wife's restored condition. John continues to cough, unable to release the spores as he did before. In a gesture of gratitude, Melinda presents Coffey with a pendant bearing the mark of Saint Christopher, the healer. The men make their way back to the prison, with John still suffering from the aftermath of the encounter. Dean informs them that Wharton is gradually regaining consciousness, prompting them to swiftly return John to his cell. Percy is released from solitary confinement, appearing visibly annoyed. Paul advises him to handle it like a man, to which Percy cryptically responds that he will give it serious consideration. The others worry that Percy might disclose the event someday, but they decide to deal with that concern later. As Percy departs, John reaches through the cell bars, gripping Percy's face closely, and releases the spores directly into Percy's mouth before letting go. In a dazed state, Percy walks towards Wild Bill's cell as he, just beginning to regain awareness, continues to taunt him. Tearfully, Percy empties his revolver into Wild Bill's chest. The other guards restrain Percy, who leans back and coughs up the remaining black spores. Paul questions John about his actions, and John explains that both Wharton and Percy were bad men who deserved punishment. John asserts that he needed to show Paul the truth for himself and extends his hand. Despite the objections of the other guards, Paul takes John's hand and is immediately inundated with the memories that John carries. Paul witnesses Wild Bill's presence as a farm worker where two young girls resided. One night, he entered their room and abducted them, threatening that if one of them screamed, he would kill the other. Amidst the chaotic electrical activity surrounding them, Paul realizes that Wild Bill was responsible for the double murder that led to John Coffey's wrongful conviction. After releasing his grip, John reveals to a devastated Paul that Wild Bill extinguished the girls' lives, exploiting their love for each other. The haunting images persistently torment John, and the entire ordeal has left him thoroughly drained. Hal and the police arrive at the mile, finding Percy in a catatonic state during their examination. Hal assures Paul that he will do his best to provide cover for him and the other guards, even if it means jeopardizing his own job. However, Hal needs to know if the incidents are connected to what occurred at his house. After contemplating for a while, Paul denies any connection. Percy is transported to a mental hospital, ironically ending up in the same room where he once tormented Wild Bill, destined to spend the remainder of his life there. Now aware of Coffey's innocence, Paul is uncertain about the next course of action. He discusses the matter with his wife that night, and she suggests having a conversation with John to determine his wishes. The following day, Paul and the rest of the guards engage in a discussion with Coffey, even considering the possibility of setting him free. However, Coffee expresses his reluctance to escape, as he does not want to bring trouble upon them. Concerning his impending execution, Paul questions how John can justify the killing of an innocent man before God. John reassures him, unveiling his ability not only to heal but also to empathically sense the pain of others. Tired of the prevailing darkness and suffering in the world, Coffee views the execution as an act of mercy, even for a crime he did not commit. Paul offers John a final request, to which Coffee expresses his lifelong desire to witness a flicker show or motion picture. They arrange for a movie projector to be brought in, screening the film Top Hat, the very same movie that elderly Paul was watching at the beginning of the story, triggering his recollections, particularly the scene where Fred Astaire dances to the song Heaven. John watches in wonderment, exclaiming, "They're like angels."